Every sunset the same thing happened. The hills turned orange, the shadows stretched long, and a tall white horse walked slowly to the broken fence and stared at the house that hadn't felt like a home in 30 years. He had only lived here for 3 days, and still the horse came at the exact same time, as if it was keeping an appointment. He sat on the porch, elbows on his knees, watching the animal again. 58 years behind him, most of them heavy, none of them peaceful. He bought this ranch for almost nothing, hoping the land would stay silent. But the horse had other plans. "Why do you keep coming here?" he asked under his breath. The horse didn't move, didn't blink. Just stood there in the fading light, breathing slow, steady, patient. It was the same white horse he had seen once as a child, standing by the shed his mother used to work in before she disappeared. His father never explained where she went. He never spoke her name again. And the shed was locked from that day on. He swallowed hard. "What do you want me to see?" The horse turned its head toward the shed, just like the previous evenings. Same angle. Same timing. Same quiet urgency. He stayed seated, pretending the horse didn't make his heart race in a way he couldn't explain. But the truth was clear. The horse wasn't wandering. It was waiting. Waiting for him to follow. And though he wasn't ready, though he wasn't sure he ever would be, something inside him whispered that the horse had returned for a reason. One tied to his mother, to the shed, and to something she left behind that refused to stay hidden. The next evening he forced himself to step off the porch. The sky was turning purple, and the white horse stood in its usual place, calm and silent. He approached slowly, hands at his sides. "You're not scared of me," he said quietly. "That means you know me. Or you knew her." The horse blinked once. Nothing else. He turned his head toward the old shed. Its wooden door leaned slightly as if age had tried to peel it open but failed. The padlock was rusted, the boards cracked. He remembered his father locking it the day his mother left and saying, "Don't ask again." He never did. The horse exhaled sharply, nudging the ground with its hoof. A small puff of dust rose. "All right," he said. "I'm going." His heart pounded as he walked to the shed. The air smelled like old wood and forgotten time. He grabbed the lock, expecting it to resist. It crumbled in his hand. Inside, dust floated like fine smoke. A single shelf held a stone, the same stone his mother used to carve designs into when he was a boy. He picked it up. Her initials were scratched into the surface. MH. His breath caught. Under the stone was a wooden box wrapped in a faded scarf he remembered her wearing. The scarf still carried the faint smell of lavender. He opened the box with trembling fingers. Inside lay several folded letters tied with twine. The first one had his name on it, written in her soft handwriting. He unfolded the page slowly, afraid of what would come next. "My son, if you are reading this, it means the horse found you." He closed his eyes for a moment. "What horse?" he whispered. He opened them. The white horse stood in the doorway, watching him like it had been waiting for that exact moment. His fingers tightened around the letter. The horse didn't move or step back. It simply stood there, filling the doorway with a calm presence that made his heart break and steady at the same time. He looked down and forced himself to read more. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because someone wanted me gone. There is something under the ridge your father never let me show anyone. If you ever return home, the horse will guide you." He stopped breathing. What did she mean, someone wanted her gone? He whispered. The paper shook as he kept reading. "I could not tell you the truth when you were young. I feared what it would do to you. But the land remembers. The horse remembers. Follow him." He lowered the letter and stared at the horse. "Why me? Why now?" The horse turned around slowly, walking toward the darkening yard, pausing every few steps as if making sure he followed. He stepped out of the shed, the box of letters under his arm. The horse led him to the edge of the field where the grass grew taller and wilder. He could barely see the faint path cutting through it. A place he hadn't walked since he was 12. The horse stopped and looked back at him. "Mom wrote these letters before she disappeared," he said almost to himself. So whatever she found, started here. The air grew cooler. The land felt different, alive, listening. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip on the box, and stepped onto the old path behind the horse. He didn't know what waited ahead. But he knew one thing. The horse wasn't showing him where she went. It was showing him why she never came back. The path narrowed, framed by leaning fences and scattered rocks. The land felt untouched, almost forgotten. The horse moved slowly, allowing him to keep up. Every few steps he shifted the letters in his arm, afraid he might drop them. He stopped where the path dipped slightly. The horse stood by the old water trough, its head lowered. Something glinted underneath the trough, metal catching the last bit of sunlight. He crouched and reached under. His fingers touched cold iron. He pulled it out, a small tin box dented and worn smooth at the edges. "What's this?" he whispered. He opened it. Inside were 3 items. A broken silver chain. A photograph folded in half. A scrap of paper with his mother's handwriting. He unfolded the photograph first. It showed his mother standing beside the same white horse, but much younger, smiling in a way he hadn't seen in years before she vanished. Her hand rested on the horse's neck, and the horse leaned into her like a loyal companion. His chest tightened. Then he opened the small scrap of paper. "Don't believe what he told you. I didn't walk away. I was forced away." His hands grew cold. He sat back on the grass. "Dad, what did you do?" Suddenly the horse made a low sound, soft, urgent. He looked up. The horse tapped the ground twice with its hoof and turned toward the ridge again. "You want me to go there now?" he asked. The horse backed up a few steps, waiting. He put the tin box inside his jacket and rose to his feet. His legs felt heavy, as if each step toward the ridge brought him closer to a truth he had feared without even knowing it. "What happened to you, Mom?" he whispered. The horse walked forward, and he followed. The closer they got to the ridge, the more uneasy he felt. The air shifted temperature, turning cooler, sharper. The ridge had always been off limits when he was a boy. His father never yelled, never raised a hand, but the ridge was the only place he had ever forbidden. He remembered asking once, and the answer had been too quick. Nothing there worth seeing. A lie, clearly. The horse stopped where the ground sloped upward. He set the letters down on a flat rock and used both hands to climb the last few feet toward a small flat clearing. Something was wrong with the soil. It looked turned like someone had dug there years ago. The horse pawed the edge of the clearing, dust rising around its hooves. He knelt and touched the disturbed earth. The soil was loose, too loose for this dry land. "What is buried here?" he muttered. He pushed the soil aside with both hands. Just a few inches down, something wooden appeared, a board laid horizontally. His heart thudded. He brushed the rest of the dirt away and lifted the board. Under it lay an old leather pouch tied with a thin cord. Hands shaking, he opened it. Inside were small mineral samples, labeled in his mother's handwriting. Copper. Traces of silver. A map of the ridge area marked with red ink. He stared at the map. "She found something valuable," he whispered. "Something Dad didn't want anyone to know about." He flattened the paper fully. She had circled something, a spot deeper into the ridge. The horse walked ahead, stopping right at that circled point. He rose slowly. Dad didn't push her away, he pushed her out of the truth. The horse lowered its head toward the ground as if telling him the truth went deeper. Much deeper. And now it was his turn to uncover it. The spot the horse led him to was overgrown with tall grass. The ridge fell away behind him, the last sunlight fading into a soft red glow. He brushed the grass aside and found another wooden board, thinner than the first one he uncovered. Something told him this one hid more than minerals. He knelt and lifted the board. Underneath was a narrow opening, just wide enough for a person to slip through. A hidden space carved into the ridge. He swallowed hard. "Mom, is this what you found?" He grabbed his phone for light and eased himself inside. The earth was cool and the walls were reinforced with old wooden beams. This wasn't a random hole. Someone had built this long ago. He walked farther in until he reached a small chamber. On the ground lay a blanket, faded to the color of old straw. Beside it, a small lantern and a pair of leather gloves. Someone had stayed here. He raised the lantern and saw something on the far wall, a message scratched into the wood. "I is not safe for you." His breath shuddered. The spelling was rough, the carving deep, the message desperate. He stepped closer and saw more words carved underneath in a different hand, clean, careful strokes. "I am sorry." His father's handwriting. He touched the carving gently. "Dad, what happened here?" A movement caught his eye, something tucked into a crack in the wall. He pulled it free. A small notebook with a torn cover. Inside were pages of notes written by his mother. He read the first line. "He threatened me when I didn't stop digging." Not him. Someone else. Someone who came to the ridge before. Someone I don't trust. The chamber grew colder. He whispered, "Mom, who were you afraid of?" The horse outside made a sharp, urgent sound. It was calling him out. Something else waited above ground. Something bigger. He climbed out of the hidden chamber with the notebook pressed tightly against his chest. The horse stood just a few feet away, staring at him with an intensity that made the hair rise on his arms. He wiped dirt from his hands. She didn't run from Dad. She ran from someone else. But who? He opened the next page of the notebook. His mother had written, "The man who owned this land before us came back. He wanted the ridge. He told me it belonged to him because he found the minerals first. Your father didn't believe him. I didn't trust him. The old owner." He remembered the name now, Harlan Cooper. A name whispered but never spoken fully. He kept reading. "Harlan told me to stop searching, but I didn't. I knew the land was worth more than he said. One evening he came back angry. I hid in the chamber until he left." He froze. Someone dangerous had been stalking his mother. Someone who believed the ridge was his property. He turned another page. "Your father tried to protect me, but fear makes people careless. We argued. I told him I'd leave for a while, just until things settled. But I planned to come back. I left the white horse to watch the land, and to watch you." His breath caught. The white horse wasn't just a guide. It was part of her plan. The horse stepped forward and gently touched its muzzle to his arm. "You stayed all these years," he whispered. "You remembered her." He turned the page and found one final note. "If the horse leads you to the stone with my initials, dig there." I hid the last truth beneath it. His heart pounded. He remembered the stone. The one he moved in the shed. There was something buried under it. Waiting. He ran back toward the shed, the horse following close behind. His legs burned, his heart hammered, but he didn't stop. When he reached the yard, the stone with his mother's initials, MH, still sat where he had placed it earlier. He dropped to his knees and dug under it with both hands. Just a few inches down, his fingers hit metal, a small reddish tin sealed around the edges with old wax. He pulled it out slowly. "Please," he whispered, "please let this explain everything." The horse stood beside him, silent as the sky darkened. He opened the tin. Inside were several folded documents and one more letter. He opened the documents first. Old land claims, survey maps, and mineral rights agreements, all signed by Harlan Cooper. The dates were decades old. The papers proved something huge. Cooper had been illegally mining the ridge before selling the land to his father. He muttered, "So Mom wasn't imagining anything. She was right." He unfolded the final letter. It was addressed to him. "My son, if you are holding this, then the danger is gone and the truth is safe to tell. Harlan Cooper tried to claim the ridge again. He threatened your father and he threatened me. Your father wasn't angry with me, he was scared. Scared of losing the land. Scared of losing me. We argued. I left to protect you both." His chest tightened. Tears burned behind his eyes. "I wanted to return. But the moment I stepped away, everything changed. Your father couldn't forgive himself. The horse stayed because he remembered everything, every path, every hiding place, every night we spent here. Follow him, trust him, and forgive your father. He loved you both more than he ever said." He closed the letter slowly. The horse lowered its head against his shoulder. Everything made sense now. But one more truth still waited. He sat on the grass beside the shed, holding the tin in his lap. The white horse lowered itself gently and lay beside him, as if sensing the weight of what he had learned. He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, you didn't leave us. You tried to save us." The wind moved softly across the yard. Nothing else stirred. He turned back to the documents, examining the mineral maps again. Cooper had drawn lines across the ridge, marking places he intended to mine secretly, areas rich with copper. If he had been exposed, he would have lost everything. "That's why he followed her," he whispered. "That's why he threatened her." His mother wasn't running from the family. She was running from a fight she didn't want him to see. He opened the last folded page inside the tin. It was written in his father's hand. "I was wrong to hide everything. I feared you would hate me if you knew the truth. I feared losing you the way I lost her. But fear made me silent, and silence cost us years we can never get back." He swallowed hard. "Dad, you weren't the villain. You were lost." The letter continued. "If the horse ever brings you here, let him lead you to the ridge once more. There is one more thing I left behind. Something only you can claim." He raised his head slowly and looked at the horse. "You know where it is, don't you?" The horse rose to its feet, shaking dust from its coat. Then it turned and began walking across the field toward the ridge. He placed the tin inside his jacket and stood. "Okay," he said softly. "Take me to the end of the story." The horse kept walking. And he followed, ready for whatever final truth waited ahead. The ridge loomed deeper in twilight, shadows stretching long across the ground. The white horse led him with steady steps, stopping at a narrow path that curved behind a cluster of large rocks. He had never walked this side of the ridge before. "Dad, "What were you hiding here?" he murmured. The horse stepped around the rocks and stopped beside a flat stone pressed deep into the dirt. The stone was smoother than the others, shaped almost like a marker. He knelt and brushed the dirt away. Carved faintly into the stone were 2 initials. His father's initials. He froze. Why is his name here? His chest tightened. The horse nudged the stone with its hoof, urging him to lift it. His hands shook as he pried the stone loose. Underneath lay a small wooden box wrapped in burlap. He pulled it out carefully and opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet and a small silver ring. The ring was his mother's. He remembered her wearing it every day. His breath broke. He unfolded the paper. It was a confession, written by his father in handwriting that staggered across the page. "I never meant for her to leave for good. I told her to go somewhere safe until Cooper backed off. I told her to send me word when she was ready. But the message never came. When I searched for her, she was already gone. I buried my guilt here on the ridge. I couldn't bear to speak her name again. I left her ring so you would know she loved you until her last breath." His throat tightened painfully. "Dad, you missed her every day, didn't you?" The horse pressed its muzzle gently against his shoulder. He closed the box and held the ring tightly. This wasn't a grave. It was a memory. A place his father built to mourn the woman he lost. He sat beside the stone for a long time, the sky fading from purple to deep blue. The white horse stood nearby, silent and steady, as if guarding both him and the memories buried beneath the ridge. He held the ring up to the fading light. "She left it for you," he whispered. "And he left it for me." Suddenly, the truth felt larger than the land around him. His mother didn't abandon him. His father didn't push her away. Fear, silence, and one ruthless man had torn them apart. He took a deep breath and opened the confession again, his eyes tracing the final lines. "I could never tell you the whole truth. I feared you would carry my guilt instead of your own life. But this land belongs to you." The horse stayed because he made a promise to her. "He will stay with you now. Let the truth free you the way it never freed me." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Dad, I forgive you." The wind moved softly through the grass, almost like a sigh. He placed the stone back where it belonged and stood up, the ring still tight in his palm. The horse walked closer and lowered its head, touching its forehead gently to his chest. He closed his eyes. "You watched over her. You watched over him. And now you're watching over me." The horse stepped beside him and waited. He looked down at the ridge, at the land that carried the weight of his family's story. "I'm not leaving," he said. "Not this time." The horse turned toward the ranch, walking slowly. He followed with steady feet, carrying both the truth and the peace he had searched for all his life. The next morning he walked the ranch with the white horse by his side. For the first time the land did not feel empty. It felt whole. The house was still old, the fences still bent, the shed still worn, but everything looked different. Everything looked honest. He sat on the porch and opened his mother's notebook again, flipping through the pages slowly. Her words were no longer painful. They were proof that she had loved him fiercely, even when she was forced away. He opened his father's letter next and felt only sadness, not anger. His father had lived with guilt he never deserved. He had tried to protect the family but lost it in the process. He looked at the horse. "You kept their story alive." The horse stepped closer, lowering its head into his hand. Its coat felt warm, alive, loyal. He stroked its neck and whispered, "Your family too." A soft breeze moved across the field. Birds called from the cottonwoods. For the first time in decades, the ranch felt peaceful. He stood and walked toward the ridge once more, not to dig, not to search, but to thank the land for holding the truth until he was ready to carry it. As he reached the clearing, he placed the ring gently on the stone, then lifted it again and slipped it onto a leather cord around his neck. "This stays with me," he said. "Both of them stay with me." The horse nudged him and he smiled softly. A small, quiet smile, the kind he hadn't felt since he was a child. Walking back, he felt lighter, steadier, finally free. The truth had not broken him. It had rebuilt him. Moral lesson. Silence protects nothing. Truth may hurt, but it heals. Those we love never truly leave. Their courage waits for us to find it. He leaned back, staring at the map. So this was the discovery they fought about. Not treasure. Not danger. Just land, land that held value his father feared would attract outsiders. He whispered, "You didn't want to lose the ranch, Dad, but what did that fear cost him? What did it cost Henry?" He turned to the horse, whose eyes held the same calm weight they always did. And then he saw it, another object wedged in the corner of the toolbox. A folded piece of leather tied with thin rope. He pulled it out. Inside was a small, cracked notebook with Henry's final entry written unevenly across the page. If I don't return, follow the horse. He'll take you to where I last stood. The truth is there. He closed the cracked notebook and looked around the clearing, trying to imagine Henry standing here all those years ago, holding the same papers, fighting the same fear. The wind moved softly across the ridge, brushing the grass in slow waves. The horse stepped closer and nudged his arm, gentle but firm, as if saying, "Look again." He walked a few feet farther, studying the ground. There was a dip in the earth, a small hollow he hadn't noticed before. He knelt and pressed his hand into it. The soil felt loose. Recently disturbed long ago, but still different from the surrounding land. He began clearing it with careful hands. Inch by inch, the ground gave way until the shape beneath became clear. Another wooden board, thinner than the last ones he'd found. This one had faded writing scratched across the top. His chest tightened. He lifted the board and found a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside were two items, a broken pocket knife and a folded letter. The knife had initials carved into the handle, HT. He unfolded the letter slowly. It was written in his father's hand, the strokes uneven, as if they had been made during a moment of shaking remorse. I didn't mean for you to stay behind. I told you to wait until morning. I thought we would talk again. I thought we could choose a better way. But you walked into the ridge alone. You trusted the land more than your own safety. When you fell, I panicked. I should have called for help. I should have told the truth. Instead, I buried my fear and let the world believe you left. I failed you, Henry. And I failed my son by hiding everything. His vision blurred. The truth wasn't cruel, it was tragic. He looked at the horse and whispered, "You stayed because you remembered him." The horse lowered its head, touching his hand gently as if offering comfort. He closed the letter and stood, feeling something inside him settle. A weight lifting, not because the truth was easy but because it was finally known. He walked back toward the barn with the horse beside him, knowing the story wasn't about blame anymore. It was about understanding, about forgiveness waiting beneath years of silence. Moral lesson asterisk. Fear destroys truth, and silence deepens wounds. Only honesty, no matter how late, opens the path to healing.